Today on Inspired Money.
Fear can creep into a vacuum if you let fear invade. But if you really do have a very definite vision of what you want to achieve, and you take action against that vision and have just this sense of gratitude, this faith that you really will achieve it, you can move mountains. And you don't let that fear creep in. That's really, for me, that's always been the key. I have a saying, which is, keep looking up, keep looking forward, never look back and never look down.
This is episode 66 with accomplished businessman, author, and philanthropist, Jay Lucas. Welcome to Inspired Money. My name is Andy Wong, a managing partner at Runnymede Capital Management. Each week, we bring you an interesting person to help you get inspired, shift your perspectives on money, and achieve incredible things. From making it to giving it away, Inspired Money means making a difference, creating something bigger than oneself, and maybe, just maybe, making the world a better place. Thank you for joining me. Hey, Inspired Moneymaker, welcome back. If it's your first time listening, welcome. I'm so excited that you're here. Inspired Money is different from other personal finance podcasts because we don't want to just learn how to live with money. We want to put money in a positive light, to inspire ourselves to live richer lives, make a greater impact, and together, make the world a better place. Thank you so much for joining me on this mission. Today, we're talking to Jay Lucas. He believes in the power of positivity, patriotism, and community engagement. He's chairman and managing partner of the Lucas Group, where he and his team focus on the specialized needs of private equity investors and their portfolio companies. From community initiatives to investment insights, Jay brings us his great experience today. In this episode, you'll learn Jay's unique path from a modest small town to earning a top-notch education and gaining financial and professional success. Get a glimpse into private equity investing. You'll hear Jay's genuine enthusiasm for the work that he does, what he looks for, and the types of companies that he invests in. And then you'll learn about a worthy cause that Jay's passionate about and how he uses his business experience to benefit and market a nonprofit organization. Now let's get inspired with Jay Lucas. Jay, welcome to Inspired Money. It's so great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you very much. It's my delight to be here.
Let's jump right in. What's your earliest childhood memory of money?
I have several, but one I clearly remember is being very, very young, and probably about 7 years old, when I first walked down to Kelly's drugstore on the main street of my little town up in New Hampshire, and I was introduced to the Wall Street Journal. And began looking at stocks in the Wall Street Journal. And eventually, over the next probably couple of years, my younger brother and I decided to choose 3 stocks to invest in. We still remember that day. And since then, I've been sort of fascinated with entrepreneurism, money, all of the aspects that surround it.
Do you remember what those 3 stocks were?
Oh, absolutely. It was fantastic. So it does take you back a little while. But these were 3 growth stocks in their day. One of them was RCA, who was a great television and later video recorder company, as well as other technologies. But RCA. Second one was Holiday Inn, which had revolutionized the whole hotel and lodging experience across the country. The third one was called Callahan Mining, the company that was largely into silver. I still even remember the prices we bought them at. I don't remember the prices we sold them at, but I do remember the initial prices, and then going down to the drugstore every day, because that's where you could buy, probably the only place in town you could buy a Wall Street Journal. We knew what time it came in. We'd go down there after school, and then we'd carefully open to that next to last page of the right section and look into the little column to find out what our stocks closed at the day before. It was a real cool experience.
Very cool. Very early start. Since then, you have had so many successes in your career, academically, professionally, personally. I know that you wrote a book, American Sunshine, Rays of Hope and Opportunity, recently. Why did you write a book?
I wrote it because I felt, having looked back on my experiences, I wanted to share two primary thoughts. And one of them is the major dimension of the book really is it's a positive book. And it's a positive book about a vision of America, and a vision that sort of gets us past, all that divisive political bitterness and so forth that's going on now. But if we were to take a positive view of America and went back to some of our core traditions and principles, things like work hard, earn your way to success, enjoy the satisfaction and joy that comes from earned success, that together we have a really bright future here in our country. And I wanted to share that optimism. At the same time, there is a major dimension to the book, which is all about the human spirit. It's about the idea that if you really believe in something and if you work hard, you can achieve. And it's that power of belief. And those are the two major themes that run through the book. And I felt I had something to share on both of those topics. And then thirdly, there is another element, which is it truly is a fun book. So American Sunshine is a fun book because it's got 28 chapters, and each one of the chapters has its own cartoon. And the cartoons are kind of humorous. They do illustrate the point of each chapter, but it's written in a way that I think it's a kind of breezy, fun book to read, and you come away from it hopefully with a sense of optimism, a can-do belief, and just a really positive vibe about the future of our country, but also just the future of the human spirit.
It's a great reminder. I hope that it is a case where we can just get back to basics and achieve. You talk about some values like freedom of speech and religion, property ownership being part of a modern patriotism. And in your book, you talk about three things: believing, achieving, and sharing. And I'd like to chat with you, sort of reflecting on your personal experiences. Can you take us back to the rural Western New Hampshire where you grew up? What sparked and inspired believing in you?
A number of things, but in my case, one of the major elements, and this may be true for many people, is I can credit my parents and my grandparents. I grew up in a time and in a place where in our family there was great respect for the elder generation. And I was very, very fortunate that I not only had parents who really cared about my education and instilled that in me, but also my grandparents. And I don't know about you, but I had, and many of the listeners, but one of the greatest treasures I had, and I think had as much influence on me as almost anything, was being able to sit down and just listen to my grandfather talk about the times when he was growing up and his life, his experiences, what he had learned. The optimism of my grandmother and the fact that they really wanted to spend time nurturing and teaching and just sharing with my brother and myself. That extra generation I felt to be really, really instrumental in my belief in myself and the fact that they would believe in me as well. And as time went by, I was able to take this belief and sort of a confidence. And as you move forward and move from believing to acting, to really taking action on your beliefs and beginning to have some degree of success, I have found that that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's kind of this snowballing effect where you pick up momentum and things just kind of move in a very positive direction for you. And so from a very early age, I kind of experienced this. And that same notion the concept that we just mentioned earlier in this conversation about earned success, that as you achieve, I think one of the greatest satisfactions is to have this feeling of earned success, that you have accomplished something, there's a sense of achievement, and then you move on to the next. And that for me was very formative, whether it was in school, but it was also in sports, where sports were a really big part of my life and continue to be. And I think you see that same kind of achievement and discipline and the feeling of achievement that's so very, very important. And I think also in a large way, at the essence of what America and the tradition of American principles is all about.
I love that. Along your path of earned success, there have to be moments when there's uncertainty or you're not sure. Can you fall back to that confidence, or are there times that
you kind of have to fake it until you make it and figure out your way?
There are uncertainty and fear, I think, creep in for everybody, really. There are those moments. What I have found to be very important to me is a faith. And the description "fake it till you make it" is one way of saying it. I think that another way really is that fear can creep in to a vacuum if you let fear invade. But if you really do have a very definite vision of what you want to achieve, and you take action against that vision and have just this sense of gratitude, this faith that you really will achieve it, you can move mountains. And you don't let that fear creep in. That's really, for me, that's always been the key. I have a saying, which is, keep looking up, keep looking forward, never look back, and never look down. And I just think if you can keep focused and a belief that you're going to succeed, 9 times out of 10 you're going to get there. And even if you don't get there on the first try, there's a saying that in every problem, there's the seeds of an opportunity, the seeds of their own solution to that problem. And I believe in that. So you just keep pushing forward. You're going to find those ways to push through barriers. But it does take some reservoir of faith, because everybody knows there are those moments when you just think, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm going to get out of this one. But if you've done it several times and you kind of have that experience of pushing through and being successful, the fear doesn't creep in the same way. You kind of know you can kind of get there. And that, to me, that makes all the difference.
Great advice. Now, you went to Yale, got your undergrad, you got a JD from Harvard Law, you got an MBA from Harvard Business School. How clear was your vision as a student on what you wanted to do?
Oh, it wasn't in some ways. To kind of go through that, I picture me, I'm a small town New Hampshire kid in this small town of Newport, New Hampshire, of about 5,000 people. And my first sort of experience outside of that town is going to Yale College, Yale University, and being in this pool of really academically gifted, motivated students from all over the country and the world, really, and having to find a way to sort of succeed in that environment. I was always very interested in American history, and I became a history major at Yale. Found it to be just a fascinating, wonderful study. And at that point in time, really thought that I was going to become, as a career, I would become a lawyer. And that was kind of my path forward. In fact, interestingly enough, while I was at Yale, I decided to put my toe into politics. And I ran as a candidate for elective office. I ran as a candidate for the New Hampshire House of Representatives, the legislature. And while I was a junior at Yale, so I was running when I was 19, and I was elected when I was 20 years old in that fall election as a state rep in New Hampshire. And I served 2 terms during college and slightly after, serving on the House Judiciary Committee. And that was really a formative experience at that young age, to be able to have that experience interacting with older, more experienced people in the political world, and getting an opportunity really to try to make a difference in that realm. Which also bolstered my belief that probably what I would be doing is being a lawyer, because many of the people in the political environment are lawyers. And it was with that background that I decided I would go to law school. Chose that I wanted to go to Harvard Law School, obviously very competitive to get in. And I was fortunate enough to get into Harvard Law School. But as I was doing it, I had this experience between college and law school where I had seen some entrepreneurial things and got involved in a small way in some entrepreneurial ventures. Thought it was pretty interesting. And had heard about Harvard Business School and thought, wow, that's got to be a great experience too. So, and also had learned about this joint degree program, the Harvard Law and Harvard Business School, a JD MBA program. So with that thought, was able to get accepted into both schools simultaneously. And the way it works is that you can choose to do 1 year of first year law or first year business, and then kind of mix and match after that to get both degrees. It happened that I chose first year business. And that was like the most fun I'd ever had in any kind of academic setting. The entrepreneurial, the things you can create in business were just really exciting to me. And so during my summer, had great good fortune to be hired by a growing consulting firm, later consulting and private equity firm called Bain, Bain. So
little known now.
It's funny, over the years it was not well known at all. And then Mitt Romney decided to run for president, and all of a sudden everybody knew Bain and Bain Capital. But when I started, there were probably only about 100 people in the company. When I left, there were, and this 10 years later, I was a partner in the firm, there were probably about 1,200 people. So you imagine that. That's just a huge growth spurt during a short period of time. And then today there are, many thousands, but I would guess at least 10,000, if not more. But it was really fun, energetic at that time, and continuing hiring some of the really best and brightest and most motivated business school and professionals to work with companies to improve them, to help grow them. Just an exciting profession to be in, which then led me to want to do that on my own, and therefore then later created the Lucas Group, which is in some ways sort of a mini Bain and Company, doing many of the same things. But that was my journey and kind of how I got into the business world.
And for you, this all falls under achieving still. What do you love about working with entrepreneurs and helping them to grow something?
Well, it's so much fun. Yeah, I'll tell you, the reason it's so much fun is that there's a positive energy about it. You're creating, and you're starting many ventures, virtually all ventures in some way, with an almost blank canvas. And there's usually a unifying starting vision of where you'd like to get to, why you believe there's a white space and what you're trying to create. But then there's a journey. And often at the beginning of these journeys, talking with first-time entrepreneurs, it's really fun. The first-time entrepreneur has a view, generally believes it's going to be easy, it's going to be great, and probably has a number of the dots along the way connected and figured out. But inevitably what you find is that, I guess a couple of things. One is, not surprisingly, it's not easy. You run into these problems along the way. To be a successful entrepreneur, you've got to really, you got to enjoy the problems. You got to be thinking of the problems as a just an exciting challenge and opportunity you're going to try to figure out because they keep coming at you. That's for sure.
Coming up, Jay talks pivoting, private equity investing, and charity work. But first, loving the unpredictable journey of entrepreneurship.
The other thing that's very interesting is the number of businesses that start out with a vision and a plan that end up finding some seam or different avenue that is just so attractive, and so the business and the original vision morphs into something quite different, very successful very often, but it's a journey along the way. And I think that what makes the entrepreneurial journey so much fun is that it's very unpredictable, and therefore that you never wake up any morning and think it's just going to be another routine day, because every day is its own journey.
The show notes for this episode can be found at inspiredmoney.fm/066. If you're listening in your car or wherever you are, check the show notes if you want to learn more about Jay or things mentioned in this episode. It's time for the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Today I want to talk about Roth IRAs and Roth 401ks. They sound similar, and they are. In both types of accounts, contributions are made after taxes, meaning that your taxable income is not reduced by the amount of your contributions when you file your taxes. In other words, it means you pay the tax now at the time that you make the contribution, and the benefit is this. You can invest and grow this money and take it out tax-free at age 59 and a half or older. The longer that you have to invest,
the more sense this can make because the idea is that your money will likely grow over the long term. Here are some notable differences. 401ks, whether Roth or traditional, have high contribution limits, $18,500 in 2018, and that increases to $19,000 in 2019. If you're over 50, you can make a catch-up contribution, so add $6,000 to those numbers. Roth IRAs, on the other hand, the contribution limits are $5,500 in 2018, and that's going up to $6,000 in 2019. If you're over 50, add $1,000 to those numbers. With your Roth 401k, any company match will be treated as pre-tax, not after tax. And then one major difference that could be important to you, Roth IRAs have income limits. So you cannot contribute to a Roth IRA if your modified gross income in 2018 is $199,000 or more for married couples filing jointly, or $135,000 or more for single filers. There are no income limits for Roth 401ks. So if you earn more than these limits, you can invest in Roth 401ks, so that could be an advantage. Think about these factors when deciding if you should contribute to a Roth IRA or Roth 401k. If you want to discuss more differences plus pros and cons, contact me for more information. That's the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Inspired Money is brought to you by Runnymede Capital Management. We help you to plan, invest, and worry less. What's your biggest financial challenge right now? Do you need help setting up an IRA, Roth IRA, or other retirement account? We can help. Email me at awang@Runnymede, that's RUNNYMEDE.com, or go to inspiredmoney.fm/Andy. I'd love to hear from you, and we can even schedule a short call since it can be easier to talk money. You're listening to Inspired Money. I'm Andy Wong. Since you consult so many of these businesses and the entrepreneurs who are leading them, how does one know when to be persistent versus pivoting and changing the theme?
Well, that's one of the very best questions. And if I knew the answer to that, Andrew, if there were a simple answer, because that really is the nub of the question. Now that's the heart of the entrepreneurial dilemma. It's because you'll hear contrary or conflicting advice. On the one hand, you'll hear, if you'll just persevere, if you just kind of keep going, if you push through, there will be light at the end of the tunnel, and that so many people fail just before they're about to hit victory, that it's always darkest before the dawn, and so forth. At the same time, you hear other advice, which is you got to turn quickly. Time is of the essence. You got to make decisions and be ready to pivot when conditions change. And the funny thing is, both of these areas of advice are true; they're correct. And trying to apply it to a situation, I find is, I'd say there are no hard and fast rules, and it's not a science. And this is now what I'm going to say. I wouldn't have appreciated or known as much many years ago when I was much younger. But that experience really actually is a wonderful teacher. I find that having been in so many business situations, that I find myself at certain times thinking, wow, I've seen this movie before. And you begin to not, certainly on a logic or data-driven level, maybe you can see some of these things. But I think on an intuitive basis, you almost feel, they say, I feel like I've seen this before. I know what happens if I go there. You just develop a sense of experience that's almost hard to articulate. You get a very visceral sense of when to either persevere or pull away and pivot. So it's much more an art than a science.
It makes sense when you have that pattern recognition, but you also have that gut feeling that you've been there before and may know how to react or what solutions may make an impact.
Yeah, and no, Andrew, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think the term you used is actually probably the best one. That pattern recognition. It just sort of it's something that I think is experienced on a subconscious level. But you get this pattern recognition. You've seen it before. You kind of and you kind of know the moves without really having to think consciously about many of them, and you find yourself just getting into the flow and feeling, part of the flow of the whole design of where things are supposed to go.
Well, it's got to be exciting to be involved at an early stage and really being able to help a company grow. And just like you saw at Bain and Company in a 10-year period, it's like big things can happen. And I'm sure that you help cultivate that in the companies that you work with.
Well, and in fact, in what we're doing now as well, is over the last 4 years, I have, in addition to having developed this mini Bain consulting capability called the Lucas Group, which we've founded many years ago. In addition to that, in parallel, have created a private equity fund, which is a thoroughly focused entrepreneurial fund dedicated to an industry sector. So, and it's a really cool industry that may be kind of surprising, but we invest only in the beauty business. So beauty meaning skincare, hair care, and cosmetics. And with the thesis being that we look for entrepreneurial companies that are very, very small, could be as small as $1 or $2 or $3 million in revenues when we acquire them. You almost always there's a founder entrepreneur leading these with a vision, and our role is to come in with capital and expertise in the industry, management, hands-on control, and assistance to grow those companies from 1 or 2 or 3 million to a magic threshold, which is somewhere around the $20 to $25 million revenue range. There's a magic threshold where those companies suddenly become incredibly attractive as acquisition targets for big guys like L'Oreal, Estee Lauder in the beauty business, P&G, Johnson & Johnson. And the reason is that those large companies need to grow, but the way they do it, they just have real trouble in these large, more bureaucratic companies incubating little things to grow them. And so they're very happy to acquire. And when they do, they don't do it on a multiple of EBITDA or earnings like in many businesses. These transactions are done on a multiple of revenues. And it's as high as 4 and 5 times the revenues of that $20 or $25 million revenue number. So very, very significant transactions. They started out as the $1 and $2 and $3 million companies that we acquire. And so today we have 9 of them. We have 9 companies in that category. And so the thrill for me is that I'm working with 9 entrepreneurs every day, trying to grow companies in this beauty business. And so I've got the hands-on, the real life day-to-day experience of dealing with problems and issues, but growth opportunities and different kinds. And what's really exciting now is that the channels are shifting from what used to be the largely selling through brick and mortar retail sales. There's so much going on with digital and home shopping, TV, and all other forms of sort of e-commerce that it just changes the whole model. And so we're constantly coming up with new solutions and new ways to go to market.
It sounds very dynamic, exciting. I wish that I could talk about these numbers and opportunities with you. I could certainly do that all day. But in the interest of time, we also need to talk about sharing. And I understand that the Lucas Group did research on behalf of the Children of Fallen Patriots. Can you share what your involvement is with that organization and tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. I'm very, very proud to be associated with this organization. It's called Children of Fallen Patriots. And it is got a very tightly focused mission. Our mission is to make sure that every child who loses a parent in active military service will take care of their education all the way through college. We'll pay for their education through college, could be vocational school. And by the way, it doesn't matter if that parent was killed in combat, or maybe it was a training accident, or could even be suicide. We'll make sure that child is taken care of. And I'm very proud to say that at this point, we have taken care of just over 1,100 kids in their education, which is a wonderful, wonderful group to be associated with. And the way you alluded to it, you're correct, Andrew. The way I got to know the organization was about 4 years ago. My friend who had started it, now let me just explain how he started it. David Kim, wonderful man, was a West Point grad. And back in the days of Noriega down in Panama, he was deployed. And one of his battalion mates was actually killed in combat. And that soldier had a daughter that he never had the opportunity to meet. And so my friend David Kim said, what's going to happen to that little girl? And started from there, helping that girl. And so thereafter, founded Children of Fallen Patriots, now over 1,100 children helped. It was about 4 years ago that he called me up. And he's very modest, and I'd known him for years, 20 plus years, but he'd never mentioned the organization to me. And he said, Jay, you have a consulting group, and you could really help us answer a question we don't know the answer to. And that is, and it's kind of a surprising question, because I would have thought they knew the answer to it, is how many children are there in our country who've lost a parent in military service? And I thought, gee whiz, there's got to be a database somewhere, right? But the truth is that there is none, because military privacy laws make it almost impossible to get the data. And so we put together a team to help them find out the answer, because they need to know that for reasons of raising enough money and being able to get support. What we learned was astounding. I mean, it really shocked me that in our country today, there are nearly 20,000 kids who've lost a parent in the military. Just 20,000.
Wow.
And so as a result of that, my wife and I got very, we began attending their functions and meeting some of the families, meeting the mothers, the kids. And when you meet them, and it becomes a very personal, your heart goes out to them, really. And so since then, we've gotten more deeply involved. And one of the things that I did about a year and a half ago is I was talking with David, and I thought, gee, I said, we've got this great organization that takes care of kids, honors our military. It's all about education. But generally speaking, nobody's ever really heard of us, or our visibility just isn't all that what it should be. And so volunteered to said, let's do something about that. And rather than take on the whole country at once, said, let's pick a place, let's pick a state where we can use it almost as a test site, a demonstration project, where we can identify the best practices and getting grassroots support, visibility, and really creating an organization. And then from those best practices, we can turn it into kind of a template or a playbook that we can roll out across the country.
Is that borrowed from your business experience? Similarly, in the way that you focus, right? You niche down to beauty and cosmetics. It's like you start small and then you expand?
Very perceptive comment. Yeah, in fact, even if I go back to my Bain and Company days, one of the most powerful techniques, I believe, is to look at microcosms or pilots, develop best practices, and then spread those best practices out across the larger playing field. And so, yeah, that very much is from that experience. And so we began that. We chose New Hampshire about a year and a half ago. And we have gone from, virtually no organization at all to more than 1,000 people supporting our cause and major events and helping kids. Actually, it's important to find the kids there, because there is no register. We have to go out and find the families that we can help. And so we're proud that we've been able to do that. The other thing I want to mention, I don't want to forget to mention, is that I'm very proud of Children of Fallen Patriots, because unlike so many organizations, out of every dollar that's contributed, 98 cents actually finds its way to the kids' education. And that's just a remarkable number. You can feel really, really good about it in all dimensions.
That is so great. And I did see from the website that I saw a few figures worth mentioning. One is that 63% of surviving spouses make less than $50,000 a year. So the surviving families are struggling to make ends meet. They need this assistance. And that the average gap in funding is $32,000 per child for completing educational needs. And I would just imagine that number grows with the cost of tuitions increasing the way that they are.
Yeah, that you're right on all of that. And the other statistic that's also, I think, very meaningful is that in so many of the instances of these families, this next generation, these children that we're helping, are the first children, the first people in their families to graduate from college. And so our mission is to get involved with those kids really, really early, because we want to give them the hope, the knowledge that they can get a college education from early days, so that they will be inspired to work hard and get good grades, because they know that there's such a future out there for them. And so if we can be mentors, and mentors in addition to the money, if you listen to some of these recipients talk about their experience, what they'll say is, yeah, the money was critical. But what was at least as important is that I knew that there was an organization who really cared about me. And I also got to meet some of my peers. And instead of feeling as though I was that kid without the parent, no, just the opposite. I'm being honored. I'm being recognized for what a great sacrifice my parent has made. And I feel very, very special. And if you can kind of instill that feeling of special, that feeling of confidence in a young child, that's just so vitally important.
It's beautiful. You're empowering them with education, but it's really the community and turning this loss, this common loss that they've experienced, into pride and something really positive.
Yeah, really well stated, Andrew. That's exactly what it is. And we get together. There's an annual dinner each year in Connecticut where so many of these families gather and tell their stories. And every time you hear one of these stories, I mean, it really, tears do come to your eyes as to the monumental impact they make on the lives of these kids. So I find that it is most meaningful when you can distill it down to an actual person. And so one person who's become very important to us is there's a woman, a young girl, who lost her father in the military, living down in San Antonio, Texas. And really bright, working really hard, got herself into school in Tufts University, which is not easy to do. And had a wonderful freshman year. And then when it came time to go back for her sophomore year, she didn't have the money to do it. So she didn't. And so it was very unclear what was going to happen to her. She was back down in San Antonio working in a job, and who knows whatever would have happened. Well, by the grace of God, she was connected to Children of Fallen Patriots. That fall, we were able to bring her back to talk to some of her professors and see if she could re-enroll during the ensuing year. And as it turned out, they wanted to accept her with open arms. Children of Fallen Patriots got behind her. She is now, I'm very proud to say, she's now in the fall of her junior year, and she's doing really, really well. She wants to give back. She's studying international relations and public health, and just the most delightful, most grateful, most optimistic woman you'll ever meet. And it's all because of this connection was made. And so there's an example of a life that could have gone, one way or the other. And in this case, it's going in a really positive way. And it's not only going to influence what she has for opportunities going forward, but to the extent she has children and family, it's going to have an influence on, many generations to come.
That is so inspirational. And I'll include the website fallenpatriots.org in the show notes so that people, they may be able to find her video, but they can certainly find many videos of the recipients. And it is very powerful. Jay, I'd like to ask all of the Inspired Money guests, how do you define success?
I think the definition of success really has to come from the individual. To me, there's a definition that I like, and of course, each person has to define their own goals, but it's the successive realization of a worthy ideal. So in other words, success isn't only the outcome, but it's also the process. And you're a successful person, I believe, if you're on the pathway making successive progress toward a destination, a vision, an endpoint that is a worthy one, that's something you believe is contributing not only to your own achievement, but also contributing to making the world a better place. And to me, that's how I define success.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that and sharing your professional, your academic, and your charitable work and success, Can you tell the Inspired Money listener where they can find more about you, follow you, and learn about your organization?
Sure. I think probably the easiest and best place to go is to go just my name, Jay Lucas, LUCAS.US. So JAYLUCAS.US. And you'll find material there that tell a little bit about me, but also about the organization, Children of Fallen Patriots, as well as some things I'm doing in my hometown of Newport, New Hampshire, to revitalize the town. It's called the Newport Sunshine Initiative. And it's really, really a glorious thing that we're doing in Newport. And you'll also be able to find information there about my book, American Sunshine, Rays of Hope and Opportunity, which you'll also find on Amazon. Actually, it was a #1 bestseller on Amazon, even its first day out.
Congratulations. Thank you for sharing this positivity and really reminding people of what's important in our lives, but also in our country. So thank you, Jay. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for the opportunity. You've got a great show, and it's just a delight and an honor to be part of it.
So what was your favorite Inspired Money moment? And what did you think about today's show? I like what Jay said about belief and confidence. As you move forward from believing to acting, taking action on your beliefs, that once you start to find success, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, a snowball effect, he called it, where you can build momentum. I also love the idea of looking at a microcosm and applying best practices, as he advised with the Children of Fallen Patriots. Do that first and then apply it broadly. In other words, start small and work outward. If you had a different favorite Inspired Money moment and takeaway, let me know by going to inspiredmoney.fm/Facebook. And by the way, if you're not on Facebook, check out the new Inspired Moneymakers group on LinkedIn. Search for us. Let's continue the conversation at either one of those places. If you like Inspired Money, please leave us a review. It really does help. Also, you know what else you could do? Tell your friends about it. You like it, maybe they will too. Thanks for listening. The music that you're listening to right now and all other music on today's show is by the amazing Jim Chemo West. Aloha, Chemo. Have an inspired week and do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens.